Hello, 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 Instagram and Facebook family. Welcome to Business Strategies and Tips with Lady L. I am your host, Lady L. And today we're continuing in our realm of our... Oh, Facebook just popped on. Hey, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Friday. God has blessed and made us through this week. Amen. All right. Welcome to Business Strategies and Tips with Lady L. I am your host, Lady L. And we're continuing in the vein with the tax-exempt organizations, commonly known as 501 organizations, and even more commonly known 501c3 organizations. And we've already gone through the distinctions of some of the major 501. So if you need to wave back at the previous sessions, please visit my YouTube page, Lady Vern, that's LadyVerne, and just listen to your heart's content. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so anything else that's coming down the road, you won't miss out on it. We were talking about yesterday developing boards and advisory boards. Now, one thing I do want to express in this segment is this is mandatory. You just don't drop people on a board. You just don't drop people on an advisory board and do not give them training. What we're doing today is briefly discussing the necessities of acquiring board training for your board members and your advisory board. Yes, absolutely. To truly be a great nonprofit board member requires having good character, a strong commitment to the cause, the gift of time, talent, treasure, and volunteerism, a willingness to use personal and professional resources to advance the organization's mission. If your board members and your advisory board members do not have that level of commitment, then you need to reconsider them being on your board. These are things that are mandatory. They're things that you have clearly defined, as we have forestated in the other two sessions, and they are coming to the table in your interview process and in your acceptance process with the understanding that this is what you are looking for. Board training is commonly known as governance training because what you're doing is you're mapping out the governance, how your organization is run. And so it is very important to make sure that they are properly trained. Governance training provides a solid foundation on the roles and responsibilities of individual board members and their collective boards. Knowing the difference between operational and governance decisions is critical. It's the central relationship between the executive director, the CEO that has been elected to these positions, and the board chairman is crucial to the success of the organization. In other words, there's a difference between the governing part of the organization and the day-to-day operations. The board should not be all up in the day-to-day operations. That's what you have executive directors and CEOs and CFOs and COOs. That's their side of what needs to be done. They do report, however, to the board chairman. Chain of command is critical. I can't express that enough. You don't want anarchy and everybody all over the place usurping all levels of authority. So that's why when we previously talked about organizational charts, that you map out each one of these levels, making sure that the board knows who reports to them and vice versa, the advisory board who reports to them and vice versa, who your management team that runs your operational part of your organization. It does not matter the size of your organization. If you begin to lay these foundations from the very beginning, then you have something to build on. You don't want to reach back and pull up to try to regroup and set all these things up. These are everything that we've been talking about this entire month is what you do in the very, very beginning of your organization. If you find yourself in the middle of your organization or you've been in it for a while, then these are checks and balances that you need to go back to and make sure that your foundation is strong. If you're having chaotic situations, I can guarantee it. It's because these foundational principles that we've been talking about all month has not been established. But don't fret, don't get upset. Just go back to the drawing board. Like I said, Lady Vern on my YouTube channel, and you can take each one of those days step by step and do your checks and balances wherever you are in your organization or business or ministry. And then do your due diligence to repair any breaches that you may have. These are common mistakes that nonprofit boards make, but I want to convert them into something positive because we know they're mistakes. I just said they are. So I'm going to try to verbiage them where they're more positive so that your mentality stays in a hopeful place. When you keep focus on providing governance, guidance, and strategic direction, that keeps your board intact. It keeps down the chaos and the mayhem that happens, because we've all heard some horror stories of what happens in boards, and I guarantee you it's because they did not go back and stayed focused on all the foundational structure that they put in place. If you find that it's just beyond what you can possibly do, Success Beyond Strategies does workshops and trainings and will be more than honored to come in and help you structure things that need to be done. When you make sure that all of your board members understand the vision and mission, going back to the beginning, it's written down, it's made plain. There's nothing wrong with repeating it at every meeting. I'm a fellow Toastmaster. Matter of fact, I'm the president of the Achieving Excellence Toastmasters Club, and we read our mission statement at every meeting. It's a reminder to those that are there. It's a refresher to those that are coming in. And when you have members on different levels, it keeps them focused on why are we here. With my Bishop Mama with Love of Jesus Family Church of Newark and the Young Disciples Ministries, she told us the vision every time we came together because it kept us together. It kept us being of one mind, one heart, one walk, one talk, one direction. We didn't have anarchy all over the place. We stayed focused on why we are here. That's important. The board is responsible for understanding the awareness of tax legislation as it pertains to nonprofit organizations. When, God forbid, if you ever have to go before a court of law behind something that may have happened in your organization, judges do not accept the excuse of, I didn't know. Because when you agree to sit on a board, when you agree to sit as an advisor, when you agree to connect yourself to an organization, you are responsible for knowing the legal ramifications of that organization. So there's information in place. As I forestated, we'll be glad to come in and do workshops and trainings to make sure that you are abreast of what is required of the organization from a tax perspective and tax benefits as well. Operating with outdated governance documents. In other words, your bylaws, your articles need to be reviewed on an annual basis so that you are making sure that you are staying within the compliances of your tax exempt organization requirements by the Internal Revenue Service, and even if there's some state and local laws that you need to comply to, it's good to have that annual review to make sure that there's some refreshing and some updates. With things in technology going digital and a whole lot of other things going on in the business sector, you need to make sure that your governing documents are kept up to date. Little knowledge of what makes a nonprofit tick, what makes it operate, what makes it do what it do. It is so critically important that you understand the arena that you're operating in, the industry that you're operating in. You've got to make sure that you are doing your due diligence, that you're just not doing a 501c3 because you have a vision, a mission, a purpose, and you just want to get out there and help the people. That is noble. That is wonderful. But it's still a business nonetheless, and it needs to be operating and functioning as a business. So you need to make sure that you know what your industry, if you're providing for a community, you need to take assessments within that community to make sure that you are really meeting their needs. So that will include doing some social media. It's not foreign to us, people. We're in it. Embrace it, lay hold of it, and bring it into your organization so that you are truly meeting the needs of the masses, whatever it is that you've been called to do. That is so important, because you don't want people to say, well, I never heard of that organization. How long they been around? And you've been around for 10, 20 years and people don't know you in your community. That's a problem. You're not in compliance to your nonprofit status according to the IRS and the state that you're in. So we can help you fix that. Loss of objectivity and accountability. I can't begin to tell you how critical that is. You are accountable to the community you serve. You are legally responsible for the operation of the organization, but the organization, your accountability partners, is the community you serve. So you need to make sure that you are staying within the objectives of the ministry, that you're making sure that you're meeting those objectives, that you're getting feedback from the people that you are serving, that you are being effective in that community. You want people to know your organization's name. If you're having challenges with funding, that's probably why. People don't know what you're doing. They don't know who you're serving. You have to make these things very clear to the communities that you serve. Breaking confidentiality. That's why every board member has to sign a non-disclosure agreement. In other words, what happens in the house stays in the house, gets fixed in the house. And if you need outside consultation, you collectively make a decision to get that done. Nobody needs to know. There's a scripture that says that the left hand does not need to be knowing what the right hand is doing. In other words, what image you have in the public eye, it needs to be positive and constructive. It does not need to be on social media drama that you can turn into another drama program. That's not what this is all about. So you're making sure that you are not breaking your confidentiality agreements and positions that you've placed. You don't want to have an oversight of policies, procedures, such as your conflict of interest policies, your compensation policies, your reimbursement policies, etc. That's why you have an annual review of your governing documents, because you want to make sure that everybody stays on the same page. You need to probably review it every quarter, because if your organization is doing exactly what it's been called to do, then that means it's going to grow, and it may grow exponentially, meaning it may grow really, really fast. You don't want to lose sight of certain things and compromise. Stick to your policies and procedures. Make sure you're complying to your conflict of interest policies, your compensation policies, your reimbursement policies, because when it's time to file those annual taxes, you want to make sure your records are clean. You want to make sure that you don't open the door to an audit. The only time a tax-exempt organization, a 501 organization is up for an audit is because you're apples and oranges. Instead of apples being apples and oranges being oranges. Make sure your records are clean. Then you won't ever have to worry about an audit, because your figures, all of your documentation makes sense and they connect. And the last thing I'm going to discuss, and this is very critical in this day and time, because there are so many cultural diversities, just multiple levels of diversity. You make sure that you want to be inclusive in diversity. In other words, respect everybody. Serve everybody. At the end of the day, we are all human beings, period. And we need to serve humanity. Whatever you've been called and commissioned and visioned and purposed to do, purpose to serve humanity. Everybody has needs. You cannot be prejudiced. You cannot be impartial. You have to, partial. You have to be open to serve the community that has been given to you. You don't know what light you're going to shed on different diverse situations and circumstances. People just need to be respected. They need to be loved. They need to be cared for from a genuine, authentic position. You must make sure that all of your board members, advisory board members, your staff, your volunteers, that everybody has one heart, one motive, and that is to serve the community that approaches your doors, because you have told them that these are services that you provide. With that being said, have a wonderful day. We will be back here tomorrow, 12 noon, with another tip, business and business strategy. It is such an honor and a privilege to be able to come to you on this daily basis to make sure that I am helping as many businesses and individuals, entrepreneurs, potential business owners, regardless of where you are in your walk. If Success Beyond Strategies Enterprise LLC can be a blessing to you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your support. Have a great day.